And with me today, I am joined by Arham Abtahi, who is an experienced psychotherapist specialising in trauma recovery and integrative psychotherapy. With a deep understanding of complex trauma, PTSD, and the interconnected struggles of anxiety and depression, Aram brings a compassionate and culturally sensitive approach to healing. Her work helps clients overcome the effects of childhood trauma, abuse, and relational wounds to rebuild trust, regain self compassion, and thrive. Through her holistic lens, Aram tailors therapeutic approaches to meet each client's unique needs, blending modalities like psychodynamic therapy and relational therapy. So join us as we explore trauma's many faces, the importance of the therapeutic relationship, and practical insights for navigating the journey of healing. Welcome to the show, Aram. Such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So, Aram, I always love to ask, first of all, my guests on their own personal journey and, what brought you to this amazing line of work that you're in today?
Yeah, well, I hope I don't give a long answer, but it's a long story. But in essence, psychology was always my background. And in my master's in 2014, I ended up doing research on child sexual abuse. And that was my first ever deeper interaction. And it unfortunately, in the country I was and the setting I was in, there weren't a lot of psychological resources. And it, I felt something during the interviews. It felt like I opened the wounds. I felt helpless. And I think I internalized a lot of those wounds as well. So I didn't know what to do with it. And that was the first time in my life I think I saw very clearly what I wanted to do and also wanted to have the tools to help people, to help myself as well. Like they say, no therapist ever comes into therapy without having any wounds. We all do. So it's been quite a healing journey for me as well. But yeah, essentially, that's what brought me to counseling and psychotherapy.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so, your therapeutic philosophy speaks to remembering what is already whole. How does that shape your approach with your clients?
Well, it's about presence, isn't it? It's about what we carry. It's about our history as well, what we're made of. That I believe is always there. The psychotherapy proves it's always there. And it shows in every little action, in every move that we make in our relationships, interpersonally. So, and it relates to trauma in a way that trauma disrupts what is whole, right? And there are so many ways of looking at it. I mean, look at Jung, the archetypes, symbols, from that to the generational history. So, and that is what psychotherapy focuses on, bringing that whole back and healing the parts that have been wounded, recognizing the parts, seeing the parts that have been forgotten. So yeah, I feel it's always present for all of us, for myself, for the client I'm sitting with, working with. It's always there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And so, regarding your, because I know that one of your main kind of modalities is relational therapy. So, how does that actually help your clients to actually rebuild trust and feel safe in their bodies again?
Yeah, it's a long-term, deeper process for sure. And the journey with every client is different. So I've never walked into a therapy session saying, "Oh, these are my tools, I'm going to apply this."
Mm.
I My first preference is entering the room as a human and seeing the person as a human. Um, the position that I don't like in a therapy room is being the expert, because that's for me is a very one layer, a superficial layer. Um, And it works. It's not to discount that, it has its own functions. But yes, relational means that I bring all of myself into the therapy realm, of course, with boundaries, but I am also seeing my client through my own body. I'll be noticing my responses more. I'll I'll have to keep in check what's going on between our dynamic. You can
Mm.
think of it as a microcosm of our lives outside of the therapy session. I believe it always plays out between the therapist and clients. And this approach prefers to sit with that, recognizing that, and healing that. So I think, like I said, presence, safety, non judgment. These
Mm.
are not just words. You can see them when you're sitting with someone, you can feel it. Our bodies are very intuitive.
Mm.
And when we go into therapy, therapist's presence, like for example, you can see everything on ChatGPT today. You can ask ChatGPT, what should I do in this scenario? And it will give very smart answers. But what does human presence do? What does that relationship do? It brings what has been missing for any certain person coming from any particular circumstances or trauma or whatever has disrupted their lives. So, relational therapy brings in that missing element, and
Mm.
that's what heals the client. That's what heals our traumatized or broken parts.
Brilliant.
Hope
Thank
that
you.
answers the question there.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, obviously following from that, so what challenges do clients typically face when learning to trust again after trauma?
Yeah, that's a complex one.
Mm.
Again, it varies. For I think one way to look at it is when we've learned to stay guarded for whatever reason, if it's coming from childhood trauma, complex trauma that we call it. Um, so for whatever reason, I've learned to be on guard. Why would I let go of that guard? Because I'm sitting with a therapist, right?
Mm.
So I don't expect someone to walk into therapy and trust me.
Mm.
So that challenge, bringing that trust, bringing that vulnerability in. And again, relational comes in there because I need to sit with my own vulnerabilities when I'm sitting with another human being.
Mm.
And then gently allowing the person to take their time, take their space, and addressing the parts. A lot of the times, the fight part would say, ah, don't trust that. Why would you do that? Why would you feel? Feeling is weakness. Don't feel.
Mm.
Yeah. And a lot of the times, a lot of the people end up becoming very critical of themselves for in many different shapes of I'm not good enough. If I'm unhappy in this relationship, it must be me.
Mm.
Everyone says that. The traumas told them that. So those are the challenges, really seeing ourselves, allowing ourselves to be compassionate with our own self,
Mm.
empathizing. Empathy, I feel, is like a treasure. If I'm empathetic with everyone else, but not myself, I'm just giving it to everyone, but not really utilizing that.
Mm.
So the challenges can vary, but I think for me, it's the trust with oneself and the person you're sitting with, the therapist, and yeah, building that positive relationship that, hey, I am good, I'm
Mm.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Thank you. Thank you. And so why do you feel culturally sensitive therapy is essential for trauma work?
Well, culture is an important part of us, isn't it?
Mm.
Very integral part. And the different cultures we come from, they have their own beauties, they have their own dynamics. And it's very important to respect that, to create that space, to stay open to every culture and form
Mm.
and be, I mean, every individual is unique anyway,
Yeah.
and our cultures make us unique in their own ways. That goes for traumas as well. Our psyche is the same. Our responses, fight, flight, freeze, would be the same. But where they come from, it's not the effect, it's how we relate to that is important.
Mm.
The actions, the voices that we hear. So I think traumas, for example, there are many things that I find common when I work with clients from patriarchal cultures, especially women. So there are a lot of the things. So for I am from a patriarchal culture, so it's very easy for me to relate to that. But there are many cultures. For example, I have clients from South Korea. There are differences. So I really need to listen to that because if I don't, then that will act as a barrier. Then I'm refusing to see a part of them. That is very important. So, yeah, culturally sensitive therapy, that respect, openness, very important.
It is, yeah, absolutely. And so, do you notice any differences in trauma responses as well as coping mechanisms across various cultures?
It can, for example, it reminds me of women,
Mm.
my female clients from patriarchal cultures, especially Southeast Asia, let's say.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times, the internalized structure would be the submissiveness. Although they might be rebellious, they might have a very strong, charismatic personality, but sometimes there is a deeper, hidden part which, or say, carrying the shame of being themselves.
Yeah.
That does not mean everyone goes through that,
Mm.
but and how that comes into their personal lives, how that enacts in their interpersonal relationships would vary from person to person. Somebody might be really alert, their fight mode might be very active, or just watch out for any man saying something or anybody suppressing you. So I already might become defensive to that, right? Or I might become submissive where I don't even need to be externally according to circumstances, but my inner coping mechanism says, oh, don't be visible, just don't create waves,
Yeah.
stay unseen, or avoid the situation, avoid the relationship. So again, person to person, we can track them down to some coping mechanisms, but really how they enact in our lives can be very different.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad that you mentioned that about the females because that's exactly what I had in mind as well. And also, I guess in terms of, coping mechanisms, certain cultures who may not be drinking alcohol, then they may be less likely to experience some alcoholism, whereas for the cultures who are do drink alcohol, then obviously that would be a coping
Yeah.
mechanism. So I guess there is a lot of differences in a lot of the coping mechanisms and what people turn to in order to try and numb the pain that they may be experiencing. So
Yes. And it's again drinking alcohol. I think it's such a good example. For someone, it might be rebellion and a way of saying, no, I am in charge of myself.
yeah,
So I choose to be this. For someone else, it might be or might complement numbing the pain. Another maybe flight response. But again, I think when I say fight, flight, freeze, I also am mindful that I hope we don't reduce people to just words or labels of like, yeah, that's a fight response. Ah,
yeah,
that's a flight response. So I always try to use them just as information. But with your example, what I just remembered, a client yesterday from a specific country where not very women friendly country, mentioned how she experienced, verbal assault on by an Uber driver because she refused to pay extra and because she was vaping in his car. So she was seen a certain way, not the right kind of woman. And the verbal assault happened publicly. And imagine the unsafety that brings.
Yeah.
And the imagine what it triggers in someone where you're surrounded by men, and that doesn't say that they're all bad men, but there is no one to protect you. There is no one to say, hey, why are you verbally? One, you're trying to steal her money. Second, then you're verbally assaulting her because she's wearing certain kind of clothes and she chose to vape. Um, so the unsafety that brings and addressing that. And if you're coming from a place of trauma already, if there is complex trauma, it's going to trigger certain parts of that trauma. Yeah, it's safer to be home. No, don't step outside.
Mm.
And we carry that hypervigilance with us then.
We do, yeah. So what kind of treatments do you have for people suffering from both complex trauma and PTSD?
So I don't have a specific treatment,
Mm.
so to say. It's creating a space for someone where I can hope that they feel safe, creating the environment. So the I think, first and foremost task of therapy is to create safety.
Mm.
And it can vary. I don't like structured therapy that much. But
Mm.
again, I would go with what the client needs or wants, right? So if having a structured session brings a sense of control to someone, I'll do that,
Mm.
while also trying to make sure that we maintain that depth. That's my way of seeing their need and their preference
Mm.
because it's not about me, it's about them. So, in terms of treatments, it's just for me in my mind, what comes is I am present, I am here.
Mm.
And as an ethical, present practitioner and as a human, and allowing that space to and making it safe enough for the client's wound to come in, for them to feel that, okay, we can dive into that. Maybe I can be a little bit vulnerable.
Mm.
And so, but yeah, also keeping track of it through supervisions. Where are we in our journey? Keeping a track of healing, which again varies from person to person. So I can't identify a specific treatment that I would go for. So in some session, I might be very trauma informed, working with fight, flight, freeze. In another one, I might just be sitting and listening.
Mm. Beautiful, thank you. And so, what are some practical self-care practices which can help clients to manage trauma symptoms?
Mm. So again, we were talking about self-compassion. I think
Mm.
that's very important, but easier said than done. Have that voice in your head, you're not good enough. See, you did that again. You
Yeah.
always do that. So that kind of voices, what I encourage my clients to do is to be curious
Mm.
because curiosity allows our brain to stay active and it also neutralizes that position. So instead of saying, when you recognize that, oh, looks like I'm not being very nice to myself right now. The first step is recognition and then being curious about it. What makes me say that?
Mm.
And most likely your rational part would go, of course, you didn't do this. But do I have to talk to myself like this? What would happen if I say, oh, okay, it's all right. Let's try and do it together. many times I've seen people count the things they're not doing right.
Mm.
So I say, all right, we're not expecting that pattern to change that's taken years or decades to form.
Yeah.
It can change overnight. So let's allow that to exist, but also can we allow ourselves to count the things that you're doing or doing them right? So it's bringing that positivity or the space to see yourself really, the
Mm.
space to be curious about yourself.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And so how do you teach boundaries?
Hmm. Very important, right? I again, boundaries are something, a way of seeing ourselves. When
Yeah.
I establish a boundary, I am seeing myself. So again, recognition. So I remember before becoming a therapist, thank God I became one. I never knew the boundary word didn't exist in my life. So
Wow.
I was still operating from my habitual certain cultural mod. So the word boundary, it actually, when you hear that and you recognize that, physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, is it a being, for example, saying no? And that's another thing for many clients of mine I've seen. We don't know that, oh, we're allowed to say no.
Mm.
So that is a boundary,
That is.
right? If you're uncomfortable with something emotionally, physically, time boundary, notice that. If you are uncomfortable, then you can be curious about and work your way through, okay, how can I say no to that without it becoming a barrier, right? So, assertive communication rather than aggressive or passive communication. So, again, it's exploring that within the therapeutic space and also allowing the client to see, okay, how can they establish boundaries? And that is where therapy being a boundaried relationship also helps. But
Mm.
yes, it starts from recognition, then little by little, recognizing and enacting them. Maybe learning to say no in your safe space first, and then, you know, expanding.
Yeah, I love that. Learn to say no. Beautiful. Thank you. And so, how do you identify hidden trauma, which may manifest as anxiety or depression? For those who may not even understand if they have anxiety or depression.
Yeah, yeah. And that's true for a lot of us, right?
Yeah.
So, anxiety, I think these days people are very aware of what anxiety and depression is. But yes, a lot of the times people can be highly unaware of where it's coming from. So, a client might come into therapy saying, I am not good with organization. I procrastinate a lot.
Mm.
And many times there is a hidden trauma behind that. There is an unsafety behind not being able to sit with yourself and working, avoiding work or something. So yes, um, hidden trauma can be there, and it's hidden for a reason because people maybe are not ready to sit with it, or there isn't enough safety in our surrounding
Yeah.
to feel that, to sit with that. Our mind is very smart.
Yeah.
We've got guards, what we call fight, flight, freeze, submit. All those coping mechanisms are there to protect us. So
Mm.
if my mind feels some information is very overwhelming for me, it's gonna dissociate me from that. So I might think, oh, let me do this work. I might make myself busy in work,
Mm.
become workaholic. That's also an addiction. It might show itself through drinking. We're talking about drinking. So noticing the signs. What is going on in my life?
Mm,
What is it that brings me peace? What is it that I'm comfortable with? Am I comfortable in my relationship?
mm,
Asking yourself, hey, how are you? Are you all right? Because you'd notice we rarely ask ourselves that. We might ask people, but we don't often ask ourselves, are you all right? Are
yeah.
you comfortable? And those little questions, they might seem very uh, little ones or ordinary or superficial, but they can be really deep.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. And we know that when we actually do recover from trauma, then there's always going to be setbacks. There's always going to be a non-linear nature to healing. So, can you talk a bit more about this? Because I know many people who would just give hope, that they'd actually lose faith in healing because they, for example, they may be drawn to toxic partners and then they may meet somebody and then realize that this partner is actually a toxic partner and because of that they feel like nothing's changed in their lives. So what kind of words of wisdom and hope could you give to people in that scenario?
Well, I hope I can. But well, that's hidden trauma speaking again, isn't it?
It is.
That when I choose an aggressive partner, if I say, why do I end up with the same partners again and again? Actually, and somebody was saying this to me, a client of mine, a couple of days ago. I am unhappy. It
Mm,
must be me. People keep telling me that, okay, I am doing something wrong. I'm not good enough. I'm worthless. I feel worthless. Why am I alive? So, and behind those words, because his traumatized parts were registering only what, how that person was choosing a narcissistic partner because he had narcissistic parents. So there was complex trauma, and and somehow the interesting part about our mind is, while I might be consciously saying to myself, I want to change that, I'm not happy with this, but unconsciously I'm attracted towards my familiar
mm,
because my psyche knows how to fight danger.
yeah.
So many times people who come from traumatizing relationships, toxic relationships, when they experience safety, they're like, that's boring.
Yeah.
It's not giving me any excitement. It's not give because there is nothing to fight. So of course you're getting bored with safety. And
Mm,
in finding something that sparks that adrenaline, the dopamine, we go towards that is unsafe. So
mm,
it's also a way of confirming my own self-belief. Ah, I'm worth this. See, this keeps happening to me.
mm,
So again, there is hidden trauma there. So recognizing a pattern, a lot of the times people come to therapy by recognizing that. All right, why do I do that? But you raised such an important point here that's been part of my own struggle and journey. And for a lot of the clients,
yeah.
they would experience a healing moment, and their familiar parts, their traumatized parts, would take them back to
Yeah.
their familiar pattern.
Mm,
And when I was training as a therapist, I was so confused by that. And I even remember starting to think, am I not good enough to be a therapist?
yeah.
Because I keep going back to the same pattern. And I asked my teacher and supervisor, she was brilliant. And I said, Jan, I keep regressing. Is that okay? And she said, it's human to regress.
Okay.
So that's the first thing to remember, a very important. And I found myself saying that
Mm,
to myself that, hey, this is just being human.
yeah.
So, because a lot of the times we say, I'm back to square one. I worked so hard to work on this pattern and see what I'm doing again. I did not keep a boundary. So, but notice that back to square one, it's never the same square one.
No.
And
Mm,
you are never the same person going back to
mm,
that square one. You go back to that position with some more learning, with some more growth. So, give it can actually be a success that we pendulate between two positions rather than staying at one position. Does
mm.
that make sense?
It does, yeah. And yeah, I feel like you're absolutely right. And I guess I don't know, I've always saw setbacks as like the universe sending us, these tests to make sure that we're learning and to make sure that we're growing. And every time every time I've overcome a setback, I've kind of thought, oh yes, last time this happened, I never learnt this, but this time I get it now. And I guess like for me, it was always the relationships and it was kind of trying to identify the red flags earlier on
Yeah,
during the meeting phase so
yeah,
that I would then not pursue the relationship, rather than ignoring them because I had fear of being alone. That was like a common pattern for me. So
yeah.
yeah,
You learned the boundary. You grew through that
exactly.
and the
Mhm.
experiences. So I think it's useful to remember for all of us that going back doesn't always mean a setback. It can
Mm,
actually mean growth.
yeah,
It
yeah.
can actually mean that you're different. And
Mm,
also imagine it like our brain being wired a certain way because of trauma or because of familiar experiences.
mm,
So now therapy helps you rewire that brain
it is, yeah.
and it helps you rebuild that circuit. So something you've done your entire life,
Mm,
imagine how difficult the example of being a parent comes to my mind. If you're a parent and your child is a certain way, makes a mistake, how hard it is for parents to let go of their kids,
yeah,
right? And for them to learn. They're so scared for their safety.
they
They're
are.
so scared for their child's vulnerable moment. The
Mm,
same can be thought of as our protector parts,
it's
the
true.
guards that we have in our mind.
Mm,
They'd be like, no, 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 but do you know how to be in that situation?
yeah,
So, yeah, it takes time.
it does. It does. Yeah, and work. I always say you got to do the work.
Yes, yes, yes. It's not going to happen on its own.
No, exactly. And so, yeah, we will definitely talk more about your work. And just wanted to ask for you, what self-care strategies do you use to maintain emotional balance and to avoid burnout?
Yeah, learned it the hard way. Um, yeah, I think we forget to put a boundary in our empathy as
Mm,
well.
interesting.
Um, Generally in our lives, and especially when you are in a profession like this,
Mm,
social workers, lawyers, even the people doing work for, say, with domestic violence, you get to hear those stories. Your body and mind are accumulating them. So very important to keep an eye on your body,
mm,
mind. So again, for me, it's recognizing my boundaries. First, looking at, okay, how much am I okay to work with? And that also goes for myself and my clients. If after 4 hours, 5 or 6 hours, I feel, okay, now I'm not able to be present with my client, that means, okay, I'm being unfair to my client and myself.
mm,
So looking at the exhaustion, because we can a lot of the times as part of, oh, let's work more. I can do
mm,
this more and more. And the exhaustion keeps on accumulating. Pay attention to your exhaustion.
mm,
Keep things in your life that make you happy. Is it going out? Is it going out on a walk? Create that space that feels safe to you.
mm,
For me, the signs like breathing, I pay, I try to come back to my breath a lot during and after sessions. And if I find myself holding my breath, I'll ask myself, are you okay? What's going on? You're holding your breath, right? So that is my body's way of communicating, okay, maybe I'm not entirely comfortable.
Mm,
It's many things, from your psychological resources, listening to your body. A lot of the times, meditations, yoga can be very helpful
yeah.
with breathing, with getting in touch, because many times we make sense of the whole process in our mind. We
Mm,
don't ask our bodies. Body is the one that remembers more. You might have heard of the book, The Body Keeps a Score.
yeah.
The body remembers, and
Wow.
that's true. I've had clients coming in with severe backaches
Yeah.
because of very suppressed, repressed trauma
Mm,
that hasn't been looked at, again, hidden trauma, for years or decades. And it's the body's expressing that through backache,
mm,
shoulders. I if someone gets a lot of the pain in their shoulders, ask yourself, what are you carrying?
mm.
Right?
Okay.
So yeah, listen to your body, listen to your mind, listen to your exhaustion. Burnout is not a pleasant thing to go through.
Mm,
And the more it develops, the more the fight, if you've got a very active fight part,
mm.
that part's gonna say, it's okay, work more,
Okay.
right? The thing is, and that can align with the perfectionist parts as well, though. Sorry, I'm getting off track. But listen to what your body is saying.
Mm,
Create space. Ask yourself, what is it that makes you happy? What
mm.
makes you feel safe? Do that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And so tell us about your work and the work that you're doing and how people can actually get in touch with you.
So the work I'm doing, a lot of it is trauma work, and it really has a very wide range. And I'm very thankful that I've met amazing people as my clients throughout the world. Um, yeah, it's very trauma informed. Um, I love it when people come to say, I want to know more about myself. I'm curious about myself. Amazing. It's amazing to be curious about yourselves. So exploring that, I work a lot with domestic violence. I've worked a lot with the survivors of child abuse, many different forms of abuse. Um, a lot of my work has been with women from patriarchal cultures,
Mm,
and otherwise as well. But yeah, culturally sensitive work, domestic violence, child abuse, these turned out to be my main domains of work.
mm,
Um, yeah, and I have my website, abtahicounseling.co.uk,
mm.
and my email address is there. You can easily get in touch. And I am also on the BCP directory. You can find me on LinkedIn and other social media. So yeah, I guess easy to reach.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I will be adding the links into this episode.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. Yeah.
It's been so great having you on. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, insights, and expertise with my listeners and myself. I've really enjoyed the chat today.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I hope it's useful. I hope it helps someone. And yeah, it was lovely being here and to share that. Thank you for this experience.
Thank you so much. So, unfortunately, that's all we have time for today, my beautiful people. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please do reach out if you have any questions about anything that was discussed today. I am sure that both Aram and myself would love to hear from you. Until the next episode, take care, my friends, and I look forward to seeing you again.